There is a pseudo-scholarly argument floating around in Internetville that you may come across, especially if you're frequenting one of the fundy atheist districts of the internet, which I really don't advise too many people do that, just because I wind up needing to take a shower after traveling there. But it kind of goes like this. This is John 21. This is the epilogue of John's Gospel, the appendix. It goes like this. John 21 is in all the extant manuscripts of the Gospel of John. That is correct. However, in Tertullian's Against Praxeas, a fine piece by Tertullian ripping to shreds the heresy of modalism, in chapter 25, Tertullian goes through John's Gospel and quotes all the incidences of John showing that Jesus is not the Father. Well, here's what he says. He basically marches through his Gospel. You can basically see he goes through like and like starting in chapter I think it's chapter 21 or 22. He just starts the beginning, John 1:3, or John 1:1, John 3:16, John 8:26, John 14:7, and so on and so forth. And then pretty much hits it all home by saying, wherefore also does this gospel at its very termination intimate that these things were ever written, if it be not, to use his own words, that you might believe that Jesus Christ is the Son of God. So there's Tertullian in about 205 saying that at the termination of this gospel, he intimates that, what is written in John 20:31, that Jesus Christ is the Son of God. So the fundy atheist argument is, well, Tertullian had John's Gospel on him, and, his manuscript didn't have John 21. So that's obviously a forgery. And even though it's in all the manuscripts, it just kind of goes to show how the Bible got messed with, even before the earliest manuscripts that we have were copied. So let me show you why this is a pseudo-scholarly argument. So Tertullian does refer to this as the termination of John's Gospel. Okay? Let's go to his piece called On the Soul, kind of a lesser-known piece. And he's talking about the deaths of famous people. And he said, even John underwent death. Although concerning him there had prevailed an ungrounded expectation that he would remain alive until the coming of the Lord. That which he is quoting is John 21:23. So, was Tertullian familiar with John 21? Yeah, he was. Why did he call John chapter 20 the termination of his gospel? Well, I don't know. Could have been. There's a couple theories floating around. Maybe he called it the termination because that was the end, and John 21 was the appendix. Maybe John 21 was written separately by John, and it eventually got stapled on, shall we say, to to the bulk of John's gospel. One or the other. Nonetheless, Tertullian is indeed quite familiar with John 21. Now, one other point, and this pretty much slams the coffin shut on this wasn't in the Gospel. John 21 wasn't in the Gospel of John in 205 when Tertullian is writing. What this here is the Diatessaron. The Diatessaron is a blend of the four Gospels. It was done by Justin Martyr's student Tatian around 175 or so. So this is 30 years or a little more before Tertullian wrote against Praxeas. Now, worth noting, the story about the woman caught in adultery that isn't in the earliest manuscripts, that is not in the Diatessaron. But, you know what is in the Diatessaron? John 21. Here we go. He said, many other signs did Jesus before his disciples, and they are not written in this book, but these are written that you may believe that Jesus is the Messiah, the Son of God, and that when you believe, you may have life in his name. So that's the end of John chapter 20. But Tatian goes on. After that, Jesus showed himself again to the disciples at the Sea of Tiberias. He showed himself unto them thus, and they were together, Simon, Peter, Thomas, etc. He quotes the entirety of John 21, except I think perhaps the very last verse, which isn't in most of the manuscripts. But it's a moot point. Tatian quotes the entirety of John 21 30 years before Tertullian referred to John 20 as the termination of John's gospel. So, it just goes to show you, professing themselves wise, they were indeed fools. I'm paraphrasing, but they think they're smart with these kind of arguments. They think they've done their homework. And the fact of the matter is, they've done a little bit of homework. They haven't done all of it. So, hope that leaves you a little better informed. God bless.